Hey, Future Lawyer. Welcome to the LSAT Simplified podcast presented by Hey Future Lawyer, where we talk about all things LSAT, law school admissions, and otherwise. If you want to check out our free LSAT course, go to heyfuturelawyer.com to sign up for a free account today. Hey, folks. So this is coming out on July 20th. So it's the day after I got married. Shout out to me. If you're watching on video, you will likely realize that this is not the usual place. Last episode, I recorded in my parents' upstairs. And nowadays I'm actually at my parents', well, not my parents', my dad's office because, well, basically I tried to run an LSAT class and the internet shit out and did not work. So I'm now doing LSAT class from here. And before we have class tonight on Tuesday the 15th, I am filming our podcast episode because I am going to be gone. With that, if you're watching on video, you can see behind me, he's got inflatable moose head, which is amusing. Further, if you see on the whiteboard behind me, there's some very complex, hold on, let me see if I'll get out of the way for you all real quick. Very complex science shit. For those of you that don't know, my dad's a biochem professor at the University of Colorado. I mean, you can find him up. There's only one Parker at the University of Colorado. Really cool dude, very sciencey. He encouraged me very strongly to get a biology degree. So if you're ever wondering why did Ben, the pre-law kiddo, have a biology undergrad, that is why. I, was born into it, I guess. Anyways, so due to today being kind of a quick episode and mostly just getting one recorded so that we can have one in the queue. We'll probably go for like a good 40 minutes, don't worry. But it's mostly just going to be going through various emails I have. I have some random Reddit questions in case we run out of emails, but I think we have enough to talk through. So first off, let's talk from one where they say, what do they say? Man, I should have pulled it. I know they had a question, but this is a long email chain. Yeah. Well, I guess it was, conditional full scholarships versus partial guaranteed scholarships. So this is the idea if you get admitted to law school, and at some of the schools, they're going to offer you a full ride, but it's predicated upon you maintaining a certain GPA versus maybe at a different school, you have half tuition, but it's guaranteed and it's going to hold. My immediate reaction is, well, what's the total cost of attendance? So if you are guaranteed to pay half, that guarantees you pay half tuition for 3 years, which means you are guaranteed to pay 1.5 tuition. If you have a guaranteed full ride for your first year and you don't have that full ride your second 2 years, that means you are at worst paying 2 years of tuition. So realistically, that's not that big of a difference. I am of the opinion that you should not take conditional scholarships, generally speaking, but it also depends on the condition. The reason I'm not a huge fan of them is because law school curves very aggressively. Getting high grades in law school is not the same as getting high grades in undergrad or other educational programs. So if you see a 3.0 is required to maintain your scholarship, a lot of people, especially those pursuing higher education, are not that concerned by that because they're like, it's a 3.0. I've always gotten good grades. I'll maintain that in law school. But law school is very difficult to get good grades in. And as such, many of those people that get high grades in the past are not going to be able to do it in law school. In fact, it's on a curve to where only a small percentage of the class can get the high grades. So often at these schools, it is a guarantee that some people are going to lose their scholarship. That's not a guarantee that you as an individual are going to lose your scholarship, but at orientation, look around. Many of these people on conditional scholarships are going to lose them. In fact, Chapman University in California, they were known for giving out conditional scholarships and putting all of the students in the same section. So what that meant is that all the people on conditional scholarships were curved against each other, which means that some of them were guaranteed to keep their GPAs because some of them would beat the curve. At the same time, it would also guarantee that some of these people would fall prey to the curve. In fact, let me look this up just to make sure that I'm not spitballing here. But Chapman Law, conditional scholarships, bad radio. It's just their website. I don't want their website. I want actual stuff. Yeah, so I can't find it. I mean, this is something I've done in the past. It's probably deep on the internet. But the basic idea is that these conditionals are very sketch. However, here's the thing. If you go to Chapman, which is a pretty mid law school, in fact, let's pull up Chapman's ABA employment report. Very beautiful campus. If you haven't seen Chapman's campus, it is very much so worth a visit. Please do not go to Chapman based on the campus, though. That is fucking nuts of a decision. Okay, so here's their ABA employment report, but it's going really slow because Chapman is burying their employment because it probably sucks. They're making it really hard to find on their website. Yeah, it's at the very bottom, and you have to click drop down for it to even be available. All right, so they have 145 grads, out of which 12 go to Big Law and 2 go to federal clerkships. That's 11 out of 14 out of 145. So just under 10%, which means that presumably like maybe the top 15% gets good jobs. Although I can't imagine half the people choose not to get them. So maybe it's more like the top 12% get interviews. So not good at Chapman. Most of these people are going to be pretty average attorneys, which once again, no judgment. If you want to be an average attorney, that's fine. but you also should be going to law school aware of what an average attorney is going to look like, what kind of money you're going to make, what kind of debt you're going to have. Because also, like, let's just pull up Chapman's 509 report to see what their tuition is. Chapman's known for being a pretty bougie school. They're not, I mean, I can't imagine they're low price. Chapman is charging $63,000 a year. Yeah. So if you're going to Chapman, like, you're going to likely graduate with 200K in debt just from tuition, let alone whatever your living expenses are. And to be fair, they do give a decent amount of scholarship. 20% of the class is on a scholarship, 24% is on half to full. So that means almost half of the class between the 20% getting full rides and the 24% getting half to full. 43% of the class is paying less than $32,000 a year. So this is price discrimination. There's also 42% of the class that pays full price. So 43% of the class is paying less than half. So that's 33,000 or less. And then half of them are paying 63,000. So what this often means is that people coming in with higher LSATs and higher GPAs are attending for free. Because who gets the scholarships? Well, they're the people that could have gone to better schools. They're the people that could have gone to UCI at full price. But Chapman's saying, don't go to UCI, come to Chapman. We'll offer you money. So what ends up happening is the 12% of people that are going to likely get the good jobs out of Chapman, that are going to make the money, are not going to be the ones in debt. They're going to be the ones that had full rides to go to Chapman. And for those people, this is a great system. They get a good job. They don't end up in any debt. It's a huge win. But that's a very small percentage of people. There's also the 42% that are paying full price, which to guarantee that not all of them are going to get good jobs. Because even if we assume that all the people paying full price were those that got the high paying jobs, there's only 14, or not 14. Yeah, there's only 14 high paying jobs out of 145 grads per year. So it doesn't work. Like, there are going to be people that don't get the high paying jobs. And those people are paying $63,000 a year in tuition. And mind you, your interest accrues while you're not undergrad, but while you're in school. Your interest starts getting added on. It's not forbearance, Aaron. Interest accrues. Further, the living expenses that Chapman estimates for its people is, if you live on campus, it's 33,000. So apparently they offer on-campus living. If you live off campus, it's 42,000, because I guess Orange County is an expensive area. So let's say you are someone not on scholarship, you're paying 63 in tuition, you're paying another 42 in living expenses. That's $105,000 per year. Times three is $315,000 plus whatever interest accrues. Call it 9% a year. So that first year, that's another 9,000. And for what's worth, that is what the interest rates are at right now. So 9,000 the first year, then it would be 18,000 your second year, then 30,000 the third year. So that's another, call it 40,000. So you're going to graduate with roughly 350 in debt. And realistically, the average Chapman grad is going to make like 70 grand upon graduation. Like, it's beyond fucked to these schools. I can't believe that people still defend them. It is so insane that people pay for these schools. Because I'm not saying don't go to Chapman, but I'm saying don't go to Chapman if you're not going to be the top 44%. If you're not getting over half off, if you are paying, and for what's worth, even if you pay $30,000 a year, you're still paying living expenses. So let's assume you're getting half off. That means you are getting $30,000 a year in tuition that you're paying, still plus living expenses. That's 40. That's still $70,000 a year to attend. That's still $210,000 ignoring interest. So it's still really expensive, even if you are one of the top 43%. The only people that are really not getting absolutely killed here are those on full rides, and even they are paying for their lives. They're still paying to live in Orange County at a school where the employment outcomes are not very good. So even if you're on a full ride, you're likely to graduate with $40,000 of living expenses a year, which means $120,000 of debt plus interest. So even if you're on a full ride, you can graduate with $150,000 of debt just for your living expenses. So my point here is that you all should really consider the outcomes of the schools you go to. No one does. It's not sexy to. Because also, it sounds like such hater shit to point out, like, hey, basically everyone going to Chapman's getting a raw deal. They're getting bent over. Well, they're not getting lubricated. I wasn't going to say they're getting lubricated, but Chapman, there's no lube at Chapman. They're just going straight in. And I don't know. I don't think that's a win. I think that's a broken system. I don't know that it's a bad thing. Not to go back to the big, beautiful bill and the idea that it's going to be harder for these law schools to get funding, but is it a bad thing that it's going to be harder to fund Chapman? Should these schools exist? Is this a good educational institution when they are putting people in $350,000 in debt, about half of their class, and those same people turn around and then make $70,000 a year? I don't know that that's a win. And often those people, I mean, some people do public service loan forgiveness, which is the idea that if you work in various like governmental agencies, whether you're a DA, public defender, et cetera, the government will forgive your loans after 10 years of payments. You still have to make payments over 10 years, but those programs are not protected. They could be axed out. In fact, I would expect them to, with the direction that things are going in the country, both financially and politically. And then further, it's like, should we even be giving those loans if it's going to be so crazy? Because we do end up paying for it. Like, while the individual takes out the loans, don't pay for it, someone pays for it because the law school still gets the money. So what happens is it's really just a transfer of wealth from the taxpayer to these law schools who are not good stewards of the money, in my estimation. They way overpay their faculty. They way overpay their administrations. They go on ridiculous vacation. I mean, this is not to get into a whole I am not the biggest defender of the law school system. And if you've listened to the podcast, you probably get it. I view law school as a potential trade that can be worth it. For some of you, going to good schools, and I will name them: Cornell, Penn, like, well, I won't say George. Georgetown's marginal. They're not a bad school. They're the runt of the T14, so I kind of like to make fun of them. But they're not a bad school. If you go to Georgetown, you're going to set yourself up for a nice career. Harvard, Yale, Stanford, Duke, Michigan. Like there are arguably schools outside of the T14 that are still really good investments and are well-run institutions. Notre Dame, UCI. There's even schools that are regional that are good bets if you are one of the upper class. And by upper class, I mean someone who's coming in with a good scholarship. Like if you're going to University of Colorado, which is actually where I'm filming this from right now, shout out to my dad's office. In fact, hold on, let me see if I can show you guys the view out of his window if you're on video. If you're not on video and you're on audio, you're like, oh, the light's messed up, so you can't see. Anyways, never mind. Sorry about that, folks. Bad interlude. I'm not going to edit it out because it's a headache too, and iMovie takes a while to process. But anyway, what I'm trying to say though is that you all should really consider if law school makes sense. It can make sense. I'm not here to say it doesn't make sense for anyone. And for some people, it is a path to incredible financial freedom where you'll make insane money. Like when I'm here to poo-poo on law school, I'm not here to poo-poo on law school entirely. It can be the right path. But law school, period, without consideration of the outcomes, which is honestly how most people approach it, is not a good thing. It fucks people over. It makes JDs an incredibly regretted degree. And it's why I think there's the tropes about lawyers being such alcoholics, being so depressed, doing such substance abuse. It's not because law is inherently a bad field. It's because people go in with missed expectations of what's going to happen. And either they end up in the high paid positions, but they have to work their asses off for a career they hate, which sucks. Or alternatively, they end up in a low paid position. So now they're doing something they don't even like and they're not paid well. So once again, I'm not here to say what you should or should not want, but please analyze the school you're going to, because a lot of you go to schools where it just is not justified. Okay. So I guess long story short, conditional scholarships, I'm actually not that scared of them, because I would say if you're below a 2.9 at Chapman, you should just drop out and not continue law school. Like I think that a lot of law students should drop out. For what's worth, no one does. No one gets a 2.7 and drops out of law school. Well, not no one. Very few people do that. It is a rational decision if you're not doing well in law school to drop out and not throw good time after bad. If you are getting a bad GPA at a bad law school, why are you staying there? This indicates that like you're not doing. I mean, I guess maybe if you want to be a DA, or like a public defender, and you're like, I hate law school, but I've been a paralegal. I know what legal practice is. This academic shit isn't for me, but I'll be fine in the field. Then you can. If you're just some random kiddo that went to law school for no reason and then you start flunking, I don't know. I feel that's a pretty good indicator that this is not the field for you. And further, this is not to get to a life philosophy thing. I'm a huge fan of quitting, not in life in general, but at things that are not meant for you. I was meant to go to law school. Well, I wasn't meant to go to law school. I was on the path for law school. I quit. I chose not to do that. I bailed out. And I can honestly say it's one of the best things that ever happened to me. Now, that being said, I have really sunk my teeth into this LSAT thing, and I'm never quitting this. The only way to drag me out of the LSAT world, for all my competitors listening, is, one, for me to die, which could happen. In fact, it will happen. That's a guarantee. We're all going to die. Alternatively, if the LSAT goes away, which for what's worth, if you are someone who's like very anti-standardized testing, for one, I think your arguments are poor. And then not to get a little jabbing at you, but the other thing is schools need ways to evaluate people. The LSAT is the only apples to apples comparison they have currently, because undergrad GPAs are not comparable. On the University of Colorado campus right now, lovely school, but it's not the same as MIT. It's not the same as Caltech. It's not the same as Iowa State Community College. Like there are very differences, and some schools are harder, some majors are harder. So a GPA, while useful for the ABA and it determines the ranking, is not terribly useful in terms of how much firepower do these people have. Because a 170, not a 175, like a 3.5 in poli-sci versus a 3.5 in biology, even at the same university, have entirely different meaning. So the LSAT is very important because they need this apples to apples comparison, because everyone, more or less, because there are accommodations and there are other things take the same test. Okay, actually, not to get into accommodations, but someone actually commented on YouTube, because I upload these to YouTube. We actually are starting to get a decent amount of views on, I mean, not a ton. Like, Ben, shut up. You're not getting a lot of views on YouTube. It's actually pretty minimal. On a big episode, we'll get a couple hundred views on YouTube. Anyway, back on episode 3, which was titled Take Your LSAT Steroids, episode 3, someone commented, just to clarify, because I imagine many of you didn't listen, the whole idea is that you all should get accommodations, which I analogize to steroids, because they make you stronger, they make the LSAT easier, just like steroids make you stronger and better at athletic competitions, accommodations make you stronger and better at academic competitions. And, the ADA crowd is not a fan of that one, but we'll read this comment and respond. It was a respectful comment. I think they operate from, and I've actually addressed this in past episodes, a lot of people are very defensive of accommodations, saying, like, of course, for the people that need them, we should have them. And I'm like, well, what is that? Who does need them? because aren't these people that have intellectual differences? And isn't that the whole point of the LSAT is to identify intellectual differences? I'm not saying that's fair. It's of course it's inherently unfair. That's the whole point. The LSAT is meant to determine winners and losers in this one game, not in life. If you are bad at the LSAT, you're not a loser. That's not what I'm saying. What I am saying is that is the whole purpose. It is trying to separate the wheat from the chaff. Who is good at this very specialized skill set and who is not? And if you can't do it under certain time conditions, is that not the point? Is that not what we're trying to do here? So it's funny. I think I'm like the only person on record that I can find saying like accommodation shouldn't exist, which for what's worth, I know this is not a popular take. I know people hate this. Like you do not, I mean, you can leave a comment, like you're welcome to, or you're welcome to email me, but I've not heard the argument of like why they really need to exist because the arguments all seem to be somewhat circular in that it assumes that accommodation should exist from the get-go. Because the often argument is about leveling the playing field, which I'm like, it's not though, because taking it under different conditions is inherently unleveling the playing field. And does that mean that people who have natural different starting points, which I will for sure admit are real, some people are much better at focusing, some people are dyslexic, some people have all sorts of issues. Are those people going to suffer? Or not suffer, that's the wrong word. Are they going to struggle in that? Like, honestly, yes, they are going to struggle. But is that not the point? Is that not the purpose of a standardized test? Is to standardize and see who measures up and who doesn't. It's like if we had accommodations at a roller coaster, and if you're short and you're not tall enough to ride the ride, we give you a booster seat, but the booster seat does not prevent you from falling like face, like flat on your face because you can't stay in the. What I'm trying to say is that if you're not tall enough to ride a roller coaster and we put you on the roller coaster anyways, you're going to get ejected and you're going to die, which I think is what basically happens when you send people to law school is they're not qualified for. And here's the thing. I actually do believe in accommodations, which I will caveat for certain things. If you are blind, sure, someone should read it to you because can you be a blind lawyer? Like, yeah. If you have cancer, and this is actually where the LSAC lawsuit came from, someone had cancer and LSAC, I believe, did not. And for what's worth, this is, I believe, this is off memory, so I could be wrong. So anyway, but my understanding, and you can Google this to fact check me, is that someone was basically trying to say they had leukemia or some form of bone cancer, and they were asking LSAC, like, hey, can I get up and stretch in between sections? And LSAC said no, or at least that's my understanding. And due to that, that person sued and won. And for that person, like, of course they should stretch. Like, why, like, what kind of psycho would say that someone with bone cancer shouldn't be able to stretch? But that's not typically what people are talking about with accommodations. People are typically talking about learning differences. And I have all the empathy in the world for people learning differences, but is the LSAT not meant to distinguish between who is good at this and who is not? And learning differences are not good at this. Like it sounds harsh when I say it, and no one is willing to say this, but like I just don't understand what is the LSAT? What's the purpose if we're not discriminating? And for what's worth, discrimination gets kind of hijacked as a word. Discrimination means sorting. And of course, you can do that in very nasty ways. You can discriminate on very gross things like racial preferences or gender, and that's really disgusting. Also, you can discriminate based on, like, for example, the NFL discriminates based on who's good at football. And you know who they discriminate against? People that are bad at football. Is that not what the LSAT's meant to do? Is the LSAT not meant to discriminate against people that are bad at the skill set? And part of that skill set is, being able to focus. I don't know. To me, that feels like the point. Anyways, so that was my whole prelude on accommodations. But this person commented, and this is kind of it's a very generic argument. I've heard it many times, but I think it doesn't quite understand my position. They said people should qualify or should apply for the accommodations they need and are qualified for. Likening accommodations to steroids misrepresents what they're meant for. The analogy would be more like a runner missing one leg being allowed to use a mobility tool in their race against fully able competitors. It's not an advantage, but a way to level the playing field. Yeah, I don't know though, because once again, this presumes that it's leveling the playing field, and I think it's giving someone three legs because they get to. I think what it is more so is giving a slow person, someone who is genuinely slow, like a motorcycle. Because it's like, yes, now, or not a motorcycle, but like maybe something to bring them up to speed, but you are changing the rules of the game. The other people are running. You are now taking it under different circumstances. So and this is where we probably disagree on the premise for people. If you're listening, you're like, I don't agree with this. Like, I think I'm about to identify what we disagree on. I don't think that changing the underlying conditions is leveling the playing field. I think that is inherently making it unlevel. And that might get to more level results, but are we looking for level results or are we looking for level approximation? Because I think the purpose of the LSAT is to accurately assess people and not to get equal assessments. Like some people, because the LSAT is meant to assess, are going to measure up well, and some are not going to measure up well. And many of these learning differences are going to cause people to measure up poorly. But I don't think that means the LSAT is doing something that it's not supposed to. I think that means it's doing exactly what it's supposed to, which is to identify who is good at these skills. If you have ADHD and you can't focus, if you have dyslexia, like I feel for you. This is not meant to be unfeeling, but I don't understand why that is incompatible with what the LSAT is doing. Because these things don't go away. Or I don't think they do. I don't think you solve ADHD. I mean, maybe you do. I'm not an expert, but like you're not going to get accommodations in court. You don't get to ask in a deposition, could you repeat that? I wasn't paying attention. Or I need extra time. Like if you're in court and you're cross-examining the witness, you don't get bonus time to think about your objections. You get the same amount of time as everyone else. So like maybe it's unempathetic, and maybe this is why like I'm the big bad mean wolf of the LSAT world, but I just don't understand how this is setting people up for success. I think it's completely silly. And then where this is ridiculous is now that it's so easy, everyone has to get them. It's become a true prisoner's dilemma, where if you don't get accommodations, you're a sucker because the amount of people with accommodations is absurd. And I will say this from my sample of the kids I work with, kids that are totally smart have never had accommodations before, have accommodations, partly because I tell them that it's an option. Because like I'm not judgmental. I don't mean to ever tell people what they should or should not do. It's one of the things I really try to do with the podcast. But I do try to say, hey, did you all know that LSAC gives accommodations to basically everyone that asks? You are everyone. Do you want to ask and therefore get accommodations, which do indeed make the LSAT easier? And the way that LSAC defines accommodations is so broad that yes, truly everyone can get them because all you have to do is ask. So, I mean, you do have to get a doctor's note, but the diagnoses are so fickle and so loose that hardly anyone gets denied. I can get approved. I have some level of low grade test anxiety when I took the LSAT, not because I'm bad at the test. I just have stress. It's like all people probably do, or not all people, but most people, because the LSAT's a consequential exam, and as such, people, are worried about it. Further, I actually do have OCD. I've mentioned that in the past, and I think that is totally sufficient. Now, do I probably overly check my answers? I actually don't. Like, I do have OCD tics. That's not one of them. It never applied to the LSAT. But how easy would it be for me to petition my doctor to say, Ben really freaks out. He ends up wasting a bunch of time because he's checking his answers to level the playing field. He should get bonus time. Like, I don't know. That might be true. And maybe I do check my answers occasionally a little bit more than I should. But I don't know that that's fair to then give me bonus time. I feel like that's because if I'm overly going to check the things that I submit to courts, or if I'm overly going to check the things I submit to clients, I don't get extra work hours in the work week to figure it out. I just have to figure it out as an adult. So, yes, you can get accommodations on the LSAT. Yes, you can get accommodations in law school. Accommodations do run out. Man, I'm really going to get myself in hot water eventually because I keep saying this, and I know this is like an incredibly unpopular take, but I don't know. I don't understand the purpose behind them. I understand legally why they exist, but I'm not talking legally. I'm talking from like a logical standpoint. Like, what's the meaning behind it? Because oftentimes people fall back to the ADA, which I mean, fun fact, this is partly why I didn't go to law school. I actually don't find lawyer arguments or legally based arguments that compelling because I don't care what some court says. I don't care what some bill says. Man has been wrong before in terms of what they've put in law. If you need evidence of that, look at what was the slave case where we took I didn't do shit, but where they took a slave to, hold on, Supreme Court case. Is this Dred Scott? I think it's Dred Scott. But the idea was we had this, Dred Scott, an enslaved man who sued for his freedom after living with his enslaver in free territory. So Dred Scott was an enslaved man, and he was taken to a free state by the person who legally owned him. And then he sued and said, I'm in a free state now, I should be free. And the Supreme Court in 1857 ruled that he was actually still property at that point. So anyway, the basic idea is that courts can be wrong. So I don't really look to courts to be my guidance of moral goodness or what should or should not be the case in the world. And when people say, oh, the ADA, which is the American Disabilities Act, therefore accommodation is good, I'm like, well, I'm not arguing that. That's not what it says. I'm arguing, is that good? And sure, I do know I took a pretty extreme example, Dred Scott, but the point is that laws are not perfect. And so when people cite laws, I find that to be a very uncompelling argument. And for what's worth, in a court of law, that's a very compelling argument. And for you guys are going to be lawyers, so maybe it's good that your inclination is to cite law. Like for me, I don't care about law. I'm not a lawyer. I care about what's right. And as such, the law is often in alignment with that. It's also often not in alignment with that, at least in my opinion. But it's why if someone like comments like the ADA, it's like I know that my opinion is at odds with ADA practices. I'm not unaware of that. But that's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is that I don't think the ADA is based in, and I think it's well intended. I don't think this comes from a bad place, but I think the expansion of it has grown to things that no one ever intended. The idea that everyone gets accommodations and that if they deny anyone, they're just so worried about getting sued has led to a system that is just fundamentally unworkable. Okay, that's that. We have more emails, so let's get through. How long have I been recording? 20 minutes ish. We'll get through a couple more. So I have another one. And this is a longer one from someone in class. She says, hey, Ben, I hope all is well. Which also, it's so funny. You guys all say, one of you actually did email me, hey, dipshit, which is I found amusing. In fact, actually, let's do that email instead. I'll save this one because I told this person I would respond to you. So they say, hey, Ben, I wanted to try the hey, dipshit subject line, but chickened out. Needless to say, I'm an avid podcast listener. Thank you for the kind word. I mean, you didn't say kind, but you wouldn't be listening if you didn't at least find it somewhat either entertaining. Maybe you're a hate listener. I think I have a couple of those. Shout out to you guys. Well, although to be fair, I think that if you really listen to me, like you might disagree with my conclusions, but I really do hope that most of you understand where I'm coming from. Um, anyway, because I think often on Instagram people think I'm like a big bad mean person, but in reality, I actually like part of my OCD is the fun fact about OCD. One of the symptoms is an extreme moral righteousness to the point that like it's actually something that I'm probably bad about. I get pretty judgy in real life. You guys might be able to pick up on this. Because I where I kind of let it out in the law school world is with these bad law schools because it like legitimately angers me what they do to people and the way they scam people. And my takes were not popular because what I'm often telling people, I'm putting out content that says your law school plan is bad. And I don't think people like that. Well, of course, like who would like that? If I say your life plan is stupid, of course it's natural to react to that. Now, it's not coming from me in place. It's because I genuinely think going to Chapman Law School is a terrible plan. And I just showed you guys the data and the numbers to back that up. Now, that doesn't mean it doesn't feel that way, but anyway, so that's where I think the OCD manifest, and I think it's why I'm so I wouldn't say disliked, but it's why I'm willing to say the things that are not popular, honestly, not good for the business. I mean, maybe they are because maybe it earns me more credibility, but like I say things that I know are going to lose me money, or at least, although maybe it doesn't lose me money because maybe it makes me more credible in the eyes of those of you that are smart. Because I mean, for what it's worth, I probably just offended a bunch of people with the accommodation talk. Like I know that's not popular. Like I don't say this because I know it's popular. I say it because I think I can adequately defend my ideas. And because it's what I genuinely believe. I do know that a lot of people straight up disagree with that. And it's okay. Like if you disagree, that's fine. Like I don't care. I hope you heard out my argument. If you have an argument that I've not considered, I am open to hearing it. As long as everyone's respectful, I'm very like pro, like, share your ideas. Because I have been wrong on all sorts of things. I've changed my mind on all sorts of things, as I grow. So anyway, back to our hey dipshit person. So they continue. I'm applying to law school this upcoming cycle and need your advice on how to brand myself. Here's my basic career/academic profile. I am prepared to be humbled, but I'd like to add that I do use Grammarly, the free version, so it's to blame for any grammar issues. I also wrote in fragments to keep it short. So they weren't fragments, they were bullet points, but I get your idea. Or maybe you say, no, you use complete sentences. No, this is actually a pretty well written email. I try not to nitpick emails too much, only when someone is like genuine. Like when I am commenting on someone's illiteracy, it's not small. It's not like you miss a comma here or you misuse a semicolon. It is because people don't write English. For the person who wrote this, you are writing fluently. You are saying decent things, so you have nothing to be concerned about. I'm perfectly satisfied with your written English. Although, okay, no, you do use sense fragments. So you graduated in 2024 from Berkeley, which is funny because I've shit on Berkeley in the past. I don't know if you've heard that, but I have not been impressed by the UC admission standards in terms of who I run into. I am not an elitist. In fact, I did not even apply to any Ivy Leagues or like high tier schools just because I didn't want to. For those of you that know like all the Ben lore, I was very focused on where I could play lacrosse. I was not focused on where would academically set me up. It's just not how I grew up. It wasn't important to me. It wasn't important to my family for me to go to like a really elite school. So anyway, so with that, I kind of always look down on the schools. What I have learned from interacting with a lot of people is that some of the elite schools deserve their reputations, largely the Ivies. Although I will say that the COVID admins, when they weren't doing standardized testing, were notably, I shouldn't say dumber, they were notably less impressive than the non-COVID admins out of the Ivy League schools. When the Ivy League schools are evaluating kids intensively, the students they produce are more impressive. For a couple years, and it was a couple college grad years, it was notably less impressive. Anyway, so you graduated in 2024 from Berkeley, majored in anthropology, modern and public policy, had a 3.8 at LSAT, rounded down to a 3.6 when they accounted for your community college GPA. You want to write your addendum on how you learned how to learn, don't do that. I started community college at 16 after, I mean, if you have an upward trajectory, focus on that. When you start saying it's because I didn't know how to do school, like they get that you figured out school. Otherwise, you wouldn't have gotten better grades in school. So when you give reasons, it can just make it so much less powerful. And further, every time you introduce a reason, it gives them a chance to rebut it and say, is that actually true? So I'd be very careful to give them reasons. You say that you're going to write it on how you learned how to learn. I would just omit that and just focus on the numbers, focus on the facts and how you went upwards. She continues, I started community college at 16 after flunking high school. You mean finishing high school? Why would you start college after failing out of high school? That doesn't make sense. Oh, you took the high school exit exam, which gave me a second chance. Too much detail. I mean, you can write about how your community college GPA is from when you were actually a minor. I think that's a good fact. I mean, I wouldn't give the reasons, but if you just say I was actually a child when I took this, I mean, don't say it that way, but like my LSAT GPA is X. However, if you redact the grades that I earned while I was under 18 at community college, my GPA would be Y. That's very powerful because you're not really making excuses. You're just giving them facts and then they can draw their own conclusions, which is, oh, so-and-so went to school before they were ready. That has tanked their GPA. The student we're getting today is actually more impressive. Now, I will note that what goes into their ABA calculation, and as such, the US News and World Report's rankings, which they do care about, is indeed your 3.6. So that 3.6 will still hold you back. The addendum is a nice touch, but it is a soft factor. It is not making that big of a difference. So don't like you're still a 3.6 for admission's sake. Like, yes, it's a nice touch, and writing the addendum when done well is a slight addition, but do not confuse it. Like, this is not going to really help you out a ton. So you're still going to need to crush the LSAT, which I imagine we get to. She continues, I was super involved in extracurriculars in both community college and university, student government, ethics clubs, pre-law, honors, anthropology club. I held leadership positions in most. I was also involved in lots of political advocacy. Yeah, they tend to like that. And for what's worth, she shares, I worked on mayoral, city council, and congressional, which she, parentheses, Democratic campaigns. I also did an internship with the ACLU focused on the racial justice side. Yeah, they'll eat that up. Law schools tend to be pretty left wing as a broad rule. So I mean, my general thing is if you're right wing, don't disclose. If you're left wing, disclose. And this is not a judgment on who's right or wrong. It's like, that's not what I'm here to say. What I am here to say is that I have observed how law schools react. And this is broad advice. Schools react in different ways. But my broad observation is that schools like left-wing folks, and at right-wing folks, it is often a detractor. Now, obviously, the way you present yourself matters. If you present yourself as like a crazy lunatic left-wing person that's going to blame the administration for whatever goes on, then yeah, like if you are going to set up like a divest from I mean, well, we all know what country I'm talking about, protest in front of the law school building, they don't want you at their school because it's not even that they really care. I don't even know what their opinions are. What I do know, well, actually, I do. For what it's worth, they tend to be pretty anti. For what it's worth, there's not judgment. There's just observations of what I see. And I mean, I'll say the short of it. I've had Jewish applicants substantially underperform their numbers. All else equal when compared to non-Jewish applicants. That's not a judgment, but I will say that the law schools, and there are specific law schools, I'm not going to name them on air for fear of litigation, but there are certain schools that do not appear to be a fan of the Jews. So, anyways, so it's not even that they would disagree if you're like saying, like, oh, if we should divest from, whatever country Ben might be referring to, fill in the gaps. Do you guys know which one I'm talking about? They're in the news occasionally. People talk about them for various reasons. I'm stepping on fucking landmines here. Anyway, what I'm trying to say though is that unless you come off as like a pretty radical person in terms of like I'm going to cause problems, to be politically active is not a downside. It is really the way in which you did it. And if it's like I was involved, I did positions, I went and knocked on doors, I talked to people, I worked at the ACLU. I don't know what you did on the Racial Justice Act, but I would consider these all feathers in your cap. So yeah, I like that as part of your application. She continues. My main passion is public service. Cool. I had various volunteering and work roles in the sector. I was part of College Corps, which is California's branch of AmeriCorps for 2 years. Cool, very good. I served as a community liaison at 2 nonprofits, one food bank and the other for homeless at-risk youth, unhoused at-risk youth. You dirty bigot. I'm kidding. That was kind of tongue in cheek. But yeah, I mean, anyways, yeah, these are all positive. Like law schools are going to eat this up. This is kind of resume that like, I'll redact the next sentence because it's kind of personal and you might be identifiable through it. So I'm just going to redact it. And yeah, so current day, you work at a nonprofit that helps adults with intellectual disabilities gain meaningful employment. That's really cool. My client is employment counselor. I would say in terms of duties, it's akin to a caseworker. The clients and population I serve are very dear to my heart. That is very nice to hear. Sounds like you're fighting the good fight, which is always good to hear that people are out there doing that. My long-term goal is to continue helping the underserved populations in civil justice, civil liberties, human rights, intersections of law. However, I don't know if I'd be lessening my image in front of law schools that want big law candidates. I mean, yeah, a little bit, but also they know a lot of people. Well, here's the thing. A lot of the big law candidates pretend to want to do these things. So even if you genuinely want to do these things, they might think that they're going to convert you into big law. They also know that a lot of people say these things because it's ironic. A lot of applicants do not want to tell them they want to do big law. The law schools actually want you to do big law. They don't tell you. And it's funny. Applicants have a misimpression that they want you guys to like go save the turtles. They actually want you to go like do contracts for JP Morgan, which because I mean it's more prestigious is really what it comes down to. They get paid more. They get more donations from people like Go Make Partner because they were doing contracts for JP Morgan. So no, I mean I think but they love to admit the people that say they're going to do good stuff. Further, Berkeley's all if you want to stay at Berkeley's all about the social justice stuff. For what it's worth, like it sounds like you're doing pretty cool stuff. So you said you wouldn't be opposed to big law. You're aiming for kind of lower T14s. You got a 162 on the LSAT you took in November, so I know I need to do well above that as my GPA is below median. Yeah, I mean, the clear advice is your narrative doesn't really matter until you fix your LSAT, because a 162 3.6 is just not getting it done. You're not even getting read at the T14s. They're just not interested. Even out of 170, you're still going to be below GPA median, and you're below LSAT median at many of them. You're going to need to want to get a 2 LSAT median or above, so you got some LSAT work to do. I mean, once you get through that, I think your narrative is going to be interesting. Like they like people that have done stuff, and further, you've done a lot of stuff. So when you say I want to like actually affect change in these various arenas, you actually have that history of I have done this in the past, which is much more credible than someone who just claims it, having not done any volunteer work or done any community involvement. You actually have. So my verdict, get a higher LSAT and then figure it out. But realistically, none of this matters if you don't fix your LSAT, because with a 162, it's just not going to get it done. You're going to, I mean, I would want like a 170, ideally higher, probably like a 173, 174. Like, is a 3.6 going to hold you back? Like, no, not necessarily. But anyway, that's that. Okay, I did respond to her, and she actually responded because I said, cool, I'll talk about this. Apologies for calling Berkeley kids idiots in the past. And she said, LOL, the Berkeley ego is definitely inflated. Many idiots for sure. So she's on the same page. Berkeley kids are dumb. Oh, you heard it here. Berkeley's full of dipshits. Hey, dipshits at Berkeley. That's you all. The Bears, I don't know, dipshit Bears. Maybe that would be a good like mascot for you all. The dipshit Bears. All right, cool. So the Berkeley dipshit Bears. And with that, I have LSAT class. So I'm going to run off to that. I will be, well, fuck. Okay, so when is this? Coming out the 20th. So I am a married man as I'll be hearing this. So congratulations to me. Um, anyway, I will be uploading another episode on the 27th, I want to say. I mean, I'm recording that tomorrow, so it'll be done way before it gets uploaded. So if I miss anything in the world of like LSAT, it's because I'm having to film in advance because I'm going on vacation as one does after they get married. So anyway, shout out to me. That's exciting. If you need anything, you can always email the show, ben@heyfuturelawyer.com. And yeah, make sure that you evaluate the law schools you're going to. They do not all make sense. It can make sense, but do not get suckered in. There's some garbaggio law schools. If you enjoyed what we talked about today or learned something new, please leave a review or a rating. It really does help us out and helps us reach more people. If you have a question or anything you want talked about in the world of LSAT or law school admissions, you can always email support@heyfuturelawyer.com to get it in the podcast agenda. Just put podcast in the subject and we will talk about it on the show. Alrighty, that's all we have for today. So I will see you all next time.